This season is brought to you by the Working Garden Project. Did you know that 74% of employees struggle to disconnect from work? The significant percentage say that their job negatively impacts their mental and social well-being. And many employees are considering leaving jobs that don't support their overall health. They need solutions. And based on all the positive benefits that we know that can come from nature, nature can be one of them. The Working Garden Project is a nationwide effort to bring the benefits of nature and communal gardening to workplaces across the country. To learn more about how to bring the Working Garden Project to your company, head to workinggardenproject.com. Whether your company is big or small, the Working Garden Project has solutions to create more happiness, engagement, and productivity in the workplace. Again, that's workinggardenproject.com. Hello, it's season 3. We're back. I'm Jessica Mernan, and this is the Inside and Outside podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome. A little background. After really finding the incredible benefits of nature and gardening on my own mental and emotional and physical health, I wanted to do the same for other people. So I went back to school. I studied to become a horticultural therapy practitioner. And now I get to help people find their own connections to nature through gardening, learning to grow, flower pressing, just ways of connecting people to the natural earth. Now, I also really still love watching shitty TV. I love fashion. I love pop culture. I like internet gossip. So we bring those two things together. Every week I bring a guest on and we talk a little nature and then we talk a little pop culture. A couple changes to this season. I'm moving the show to Thursdays. We don't even need to get into the reasons why. It's boring. But 2, most episodes this season will be a little shorter and a little bit more topical. We'll do a piece of nature news or a cool journal or research study, and then we'll dive right into pop culture. Some episodes will be a little bit on the longer side if I'm talking to an author or we're talking about a bigger topic, but otherwise they're going to be shorter, sweeter, light, and fun. This week is going to be on the little bit of the longer side because I'm talking to Tarpley Hitt and I couldn't stop talking to her about her new book, Barbieland. We'll get to that in a second. She's a journalist and she's an editor and contributor at The Drift magazine. She previously reported on culture and money for the Daily Beast and Gawker, and her work has appeared in the New York Times, the Paris Review, the Guardian, Airmail, and lots more. But today, we're talking about the very inside thing that she just did, the book Barbieland. And if you're like me, the Barbie movie takeover was just too much. Every brand, every website turned pink. The movie turned Barbie into this empathetic feminist icon, but that's not what Tarpley's book is about. It's really about the business of Barbie and how Barbie was a stolen doll, allegedly, all the lawsuits, the colorful characters that are part of the Mattel world, and how the founder, Ruth, rail against feminism, which is completely opposite of all of the conversation around the Barbie movie. This book is so good, so well reported, and there's so many obscure and amazing details that Tarpley found that I was shocked and laughed out loud so many times reading this book. We also talk about the nature concept called Extinction of experience. We talk the Beckhams, and I'll leave her last inside thing as a surprise. This one is packed. It's really fun. I love talking to Tarpley so much. Let's get to her right now. You can find everything that we talked about in the show notes at baskergardens.com. You can also find my current workshops and ways that we can work together to help you connect and find the benefits of nature. Here's Tarpley. Tarpley, welcome to the podcast. I already went on and on and on about how great your new book is, Barbieland, but we're going to talk a little bit about nature and then we'll go back to talking about how great your book is. Does that sound good?
That sounds amazing. Thank you for having me.
So this podcast is called Inside and Outside. We actually talk about the outside first, and at the beginning of every episode, I share either some sort of interesting nature news or a nature study. And this one I found I just am so fascinated by how heavy the title of it was. And I want to see your feedback on it. So this was written actually in 2016, but it's, I think, more relevant than ever. And grossly enough, there's that 2016 trend online right now. So I can think it makes sense. This is called Extinction of Experience, which is so heavy.
Uh-oh.
The loss of human nature interactions. And I just like that it's called Extinction of Experience. That term was coined actually in 1993 by Robert M. Pyle, who wrote about how we just have this extinction of experience, the loss of human nature interactions. And, you know, he wrote that in 1993, but these authors, they wanted to sort of investigate like where that is now. And, 2016, I still think we're there. I think it might even be worse, that this loss of connection to nature, human interactions, can really impact public health, reduced emotional ability towards nature, and a decline in pro-environmental attitudes and behaviors. What do you think about this?
What are they counting as a human experience with nature? Like,
great question.
Is it literally touching grass, or like,
it's and I think that's something that they talk about in this article is you can give people the nature, right? Like you can put in gardens at schools, you can create more green spaces, which a lot of cities want to do, but the person actually has to go into that space and experience it. Like just creating it isn't enough. So it's a lot of people that live in more urban environments, unless you make it a point to walk to a park or you make it a point to go on a weekend to upstate or something, you're not getting that connection. And for a lot of people, that could be gardening, it could be bird watching, it could be, taking a walk in nature, but it's just that loss of connection. And I feel like there's so many reasons why there's a loss, right? It's like we're addicted to our phones, we're addicted to the internet. Parents are scared of their kids to play outside. So how are you connected to nature right now? Do you have an extinction of experience?
I live about 15 minutes south by foot from Prospect Park, and I have a dog. So I would say I am, by, necessity of my dog being able to pee, encountering nature all the time. And specifically Prospect Park, amazing park. But before I lived within, walking distance of Prospect Park, I lived truly so far from any kind of actual park. I lived close to a park that was like a lot of, tennis court, playground, and then like a handful of scraps of grass, which was always very competitive to sort of secure a seat in. But a lot of the time I lived in New York City, there was not a lot of like tree coverage in the park,
right?
Nature nearby.
And I think what's really interesting about this article, and I think, just seeing how our government right now doesn't even believe in climate change, is that concept of not having exposure to nature or not having that connection or that extinction of experience, it squashes any sort of pro-environmental thoughts or actions that we might want to take, which I just think is so, I think we talk a lot about, obviously, the mental, the cognitive, the physical, the emotional connections that we can have from nature. But I think sometimes that gets lost, is people not feeling pro-environmental anymore.
Yeah. I think I want to say that I have to assume that most people on some level do care about the earth and do care about nature, but it's just not at the fore of their mind all of the time. Like, and that it's easier to enter that place of, emotional detachment when you live in in a more urban environment where it's not an essential part of your daily experience. But I have to imagine that many people would care if confronted with it.
You would hope, right?
Yeah. I lived in LA for a while, and part of why I wanted to leave, there were many complicated reasons why I wanted to leave, but one of them was it was way harder for me to not out there, the reality of climate change was so front and center. I mean, forest fires were happening all the time. Air quality was just always not very good. Everyone had an app, the AQI app, to monitor air quality. And then, no one from California actually cares about this, but for whatever reason, I could not get over the big one. I was like, well, it could just happen at any time. Right. What are you guys doing?
and just to be clear, by the big one, you mean a giant earthquake. If people don't know what that means.
Yeah, the San Andreas fault line. It's been overdue for, an earthquake for, decades.
Yeah, I myself, like, obviously care so much about nature, but I also, I can't subscribe to a lot of climate change newsletters. Like, I need to take it in doses because it's just too overwhelming sometimes. So I think that there are also people that care so much that it's almost too hard to read and look at the realities.
I think that's true for so many people, and that's part of why the media has trouble covering climate change. A couple of years ago, I worked for a website, and they would do an annual survey of readers about like what kinds of articles they wanted to read and like where they thought the website should be investing resources. And every year, climate and science news would be like up at the top of articles readers thought they wanted to read.
Whoa.
But then when you actually looked at the traffic and like what kinds of articles people were actually clicking on and reading to the end, climate change articles were always at the bottom. And Royals coverage was uniformly at the top.
Wow.
I just thought that was a really good portrait of like, people want to care about climate change. They do, but just really, it can be really upsetting.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to link this article or journal, Extinction of Experience, in the show notes if people want to read it. I think it's really fascinating. And just, it even goes into risk of diabetes and heart disease. And I mean, I think that we don't even understand the depths of how much interactions with nature can help us. We're going to move inside. Before we get to your inside pick, which you had, I just want to tell anyone in the future that comes on this podcast, you're really going to have to compete hard with Tarpley because she had 4 fully fleshed out ideas for her inside pick. They were so good. But before we go there, we're going to talk about your new book, Barbieland. It is so good. It is so well written. I just don't even understand how your brain did this. If you listen to like music and you're like, how does the composer put that together? Like, I felt like I didn't you did such a good job writing this. And it was interesting because when I got the press release about it and they pitched you for the podcast, I was like, I really don't give a fuck about anything Barbie. Like, I at first was like, oh, a Barbie thing. Like, the Barbie coverage of the Barbie movie was just way too much for me. But then I read this synopsis and I was like, oh my God, this is like Dynasty. It's like a drama. So what led you to writing this? Because it's so fascinating.
I mean, I also experienced Barbie media fatigue after the Barbie movie and was like, oh no.
Yeah.
They really went all out on that one. I, like you, have not, like, Barbie was not a big part of my life. My Gen X mom, or I guess she's boomer cusp or something, I don't know, was like, we're not having that in the house. And so it was very much off limits. And by the time I sort of came to, know what Barbie was, it was sort of too late. And I'd already, bought all the Raggedy Ann stock. But I have always been interested in dolls and this idea that for whatever reason humans have been doing since we first came up with civilization, that we'll make these little replica versions of ourselves and either worship them or give them to children. And like the doll as a cultural artifact has always been interesting to me. A couple of years ago, I wrote about these women who make reborn dolls. Have you ever heard of those?
No. What is that?
They're these hyper-realistic baby dolls, and they can cost like in the thousands of dollars because they're so craft-oriented and they use a special silicone to make the skin feel like baby skin, and veins are painted on them really delicately. And
like
when
an
you pick them up,
adult sex doll, but for like a baby.
And way more realistic than a sex doll. Like,
wow.
They pass sort of the uncanny valley situation where if you just saw one out in public, you'd think that was a baby. And
I don't know why this makes me feel ill thinking about this, but go on.
Yeah, well, so they have all these sort of rules. Like, the women who made these dolls were like, whenever they sell one, they're like, okay, so you can't leave this in a parked hot car. So your car the police will be called on your car.
Right.
If you go outside in right now in New York, it's like, 6 degrees outside with wind chill. If you bring this doll out and it's not wearing a sweater, cops are being called, So, and they're used a lot in grief therapy for like people who have lost children or can't have children and things like that. And the people who buy these dolls, they form these intense, like almost human emotional attachments to the dolls. A lot of other people feel like you did, which is like, ugh. And so this sort of like extreme emotional response that you see in dolls, I feel like is only concentrated in Barbie, who's like the most hated and beloved doll in the history of toys. And so that was interesting to me. I was also working for a website called Gawker at the time, which was not the original Gawker, which was sued into bankruptcy, but somebody had bought the IP at bankruptcy court and revived this website, which was essentially a different website operating under the same name. And so I'd gotten interested in sort of how obsessed our culture has gotten in revived IP and nostalgic IP and knockoffs and copies and sequels. And so the fact that Barbie, at that time when I started this, the movie was not out, but was in the works. And so the idea of this doll that was going to have this revived IP moment, I was interested in that. And then the thing that sold me was finding out that Barbie had this secret history where she was a knockoff of a German doll. I was like, that rocks.
Okay. And I feel like, I think when it's a book that it's a nonfiction book, it's weird to say like, I don't want to give anything away because it's not a fiction book with spoiling the end, but I don't want to give anything away because this was a roller coaster, crazy ride of some of the most wild characters I've read in a nonfiction book. And I just, when you started going down the rabbit hole of writing this book, did you know all of these characters existed, or were you just like, was this onion that just kept on like finding new layers?
I definitely knew there were a lot of really colorful characters because the last big overarching history of Barbie was written by M.G. Lord in 1904. And so I'd read that, and she gets into a little bit the Bill Lilly backstory and Jack Ryan. And so I knew that there were some really fun characters to look into. And that was also part of what sold me on the idea of the book. Is just, I wanted there to be really interesting, zany, morally complex, funny.
Morally complex.
Pervy.
That is such a great word of saying it.
And Mattel happens to have a lot of those people in its alumni association. Association.
I mean, there were so many moments in your book where you quoted some of these things that the men said, and I actually either like jotted down ew or just like kind of recoiled at like the things that they said. I found it so fascinating, like, again, not giving anything away, but some of these things that these men were saying within the business about other women, like where did you uncover these quotes?
Well, which did you have particular ones in mind?
Sure. Do you pronounce it?
That comes to mind is Ernest Dichter.
Exactly, that's what I wrote down. Dichter describing an erection. I just wrote down the word animal man underlined.
Yeah, he describes beheading a bunch of chickens who've gotten an illness and getting an erection while doing it.
Yeah.
He literally wrote that in his own memoir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, Dichter had was extremely so Ernest Dichter was a a motivational researcher in the 50s and 60s, who basically he styled himself as this Freudian protege who would come in to, big Fortune 500, S&P 500 companies and help them sell products by sort of doing Freudian analysis on the minds of the consumer and trying to figure out what they really want and how to make them buy more of it. And so he was super prolific, both in writing books about himself and in market research, and in like the studies that he wrote for these companies are all archived at this museum in Delaware, the Hagley Museum. And so it's crazy what he was just willing to say about himself and put into print.
All of these men and women, as you describe them as colorful characters, they were very problematic and said extremely problematic things, but also kind of marketing geniuses a lot of times. And Mattel, just like this history of rising and falling and rising and falling, and the secrecy and the espionage. And I just, I think Ruth, who founded Mattel with her husband Elliot, was also such a complicated character. And I just wonder, so much of reading it from the lens of today, right? Like so many of the things that they said and did were problematic, but how did it leave you thinking about these people? Marketing geniuses, fucked up frauds? Like, how did you leave thinking about them?
I mean, I think I try to think of them as just people who are good at some stuff and bad at other stuff, and sometimes accumulate power and do not use it well. So I think I think what frustrated me about the movie was its portrait of Ruth as this sort of like, grandmotherly fairy godmother. I mean, she is sort of like a ghost. She lives in a heavenly kitchen in Mattel's headquarters. She gives, empowering advice and then like makes a couple jokes about how she got in trouble with the IRS. Mm-hmm. And in reality, she's like a way more complicated and interesting person, and interesting for how all the ways she's not empowering as well. Right. So she, first of all, she did not get in trouble with the IRS. She was like indicted for fraud. The IRS wasn't involved. It was the Securities and Exchange Commission. So that's one thing. But also, like, she just wasn't interested in feminism. She wasn't interested in helping women. And she, for all the other things that she was good at, like she elbowed her way to the top of the toy industry in a time when there was like literally single digit women in that field or in any field. And we can acknowledge all of that without making her out to be some sort of like feminist icon, when she would reject that as ferociously as I would.
Yeah. And I mean, this book was so packed with just wild stories. When she had to get a breast removed because of a lump, she actually started making breast implants, which is something I never knew.
Yeah. So after she gets indicted for fraud, she gets pushed out of Mattel, and then and this is all happening after she's had one mastectomy, and then she gets her other breast removed as well. And back in the day, mastectomies were pretty mutilating. Like they were good at beating breast cancer, but it left her with permanent nerve damage. They basically she went under anesthesia to get a biopsy and woke up and she didn't have a breast anymore because they'd found something. And then she goes around trying to look for like bras that have a padded breast, and she's only finding, it's like trying to get shoes and they only sell left feet. It's like they weren't made to fit left and right, and they weren't really customizable. And she's literally dying being unemployed. Like she's someone who has always worked. So her next business enterprise is called Nearly Me, where she makes sort of like prosthetic breasts and for fellow mastectomies. And she's really, once again, the marketing prowess comes out. She in order to promote it, she knows she's controversial because she literally was convicted of fraud and a national tabloid story for, several months. And so she goes on all the talk shows and lets the hosts feel her up and try to guess which breast is fake. and takes off her shirt. Like, she's really leaning into the sort of salaciousness of her reputation to promote this new product, but with a kind of wicked sensibility.
Yeah. Well, highly recommend it if people haven't understood how much I like this book. I think what was so great about it is I've definitely read a lot of articles about, just dissecting Barbie in terms of feminism and all of those things, but you really dove deep into the business and just that cast of characters surrounding it. And I just was astonished that, like, I don't think that anyone realizes all that happened.
I hope so.
It's amazing. So thank you so much for writing this book. All right. So now we're going to move inside. Every single episode, my guest chooses an inside. I mean, we've just covered Barbie, which is totally inside, but you get more inside chances. The categories are TV, book, or movie you're obsessed with, internet gossip you must discuss, wild card, or beauty, fashion, food trend that you love or hate. What are you choosing?
Well, I think the two we landed on after hashing it out on the email was one that is internet gossip and one that's TV show.
Yes. And I want to say hashing it out means you sent them to me and I'm like, oh my God, these are so good. Let's go with these two. There's no hashing. Okay. So let's start with your internet gossip, which is the Beckhams.
Okay.
And yeah. I would like to cover this from more of the lens of, like, I don't want to get into the inner workings of it because everyone's already heard that before. I think what's important is that there's a mini Nightline documentary about it. Like, people are above and beyond obsessed with this to the point of, So tell me why this was something you wanted to talk about.
The Nightline documentary was the thing that leapt out at me because, I mean, I sort of passively clicked on, I got Page Six's newsletter and TMZ's newsletter. So I, was getting these headlines and I was following it as, anyone who follows this kind of thing was.
Actually, we should give background that we're specifically talking about how Brooklyn Beckham did a 6-story Instagram account, like not just like a few words on each story, but like full paragraphs about how he was no longer wanting to be a part of his family. They were performative. They, made his wife feel uncomfortable, and there was just like sort of like a falling apart of their family. And also he just believes everything they do is basically for attention, and he no longer wants to be a part of that. Yeah,
which LOL, because there have been people have been there's been gossip blogs and celebrity entertainment sites covering this sort of like low-key feud between the Beckhams and the Peltzes for several years, but literally nothing caused as big a media firestorm as his Instagram post, which I would argue was intentional. Mm-hmm. But the thing that stuck out to me was after a couple days of sort of like passively reading these articles, I log into Hulu and the entire homepage is dedicated to this Nightline documentary. Mm-hmm. Where I just watched the 30-second automatically playing trailer, mm-hmm. but they have 4 different talking heads, mm-hmm. They're doing
Chris
on
Connolly's
camera.
In it.
Yeah, on camera interviews with people I've never social media managers, entertainment reporters, and they're all it looks like it's a produced documentary in the style of the Diddy documentary or something.
Yes,
but this is literally just about an Instagram story.
Yes.
And there's no new information. The talking heads are giving their quotes. That's never in the history of the Beckham family have we seen something this astonishing. It's what are you hoping to get from these interviews?
I know. Wait, so did you end up watching, or you just watched the 30-second?
I just watched the 30-second.
I watched the whole
Oh, you watched the whole thing? Okay,
yes,
please tell me.
Of course. I mean, it's exactly what you just said. There's really nothing more. I think Kiki Monique was in it, and if anyone is a Housewives fan, she was like a storyline in an entire season of the Real Housewives. So I was kind of shocked to see Kiki Monique in this because I just am used to seeing her covering the Housewives. I think, and I had a discussion with this last night with someone that I'm like enthralled by your book, right? Barbieland. It's like fun. It's gossipy. There's just like, it's the dynasty of all of these people. The same way that in some ways it's the Beckhams, right? It's like, it's gossipy. It's this dynasty. Yet I'm so just kind of grossed out and almost embarrassed at how invested people are in it.
Totally.
Whereas I don't feel that way about other things like this book. And I was kind of analyzing it. And I think that part of the embarrassment and disgust is, I think maybe 5 to 10 years ago, this would be like on E! News, right? They'd cover it for 10 minutes, then it would be over or be on Entertainment Tonight. I think it's like the TikTokification of it all, where you have not even 1,000, maybe 10,000 people talking about it and the memes and the everything. It just almost feels embarrassing to be this obsessed with it. Do you feel that feeling?
I do. And I, although that doesn't stop me.
No, for sure. But like, but it just, it feels different.
My take as well. No, it's totally different. And I think because, if this had happened 10 years ago, certain websites like Gawker and Jezebel and blogs would be writing about it and people would be sounding off in the comments. But because the TikTokification of all of this has made it so, it's reached so far, you see institutional legacy media also trying to hop in and get some of that click traffic. Like the Times had a big explainer on the Brooklyn Beckham family feud. And I clicked on it because I was like, did they send their reporters out to the scene to do some, shoe leather reporting and try to add to the story? No, it's an aggregation of what was already on, TMZ. And at one point they're talking about the wedding dance. I guess Brooklyn Beckham said that his mom danced really inappropriately with him, which is kind of a weird thing to say about your own mom, even if it was. I just was like, huh? Anyway.
But in the documentary, it's not even a documentary. It's like a Nightline. It's Impact X Nightline or whatever. But the DJ is in it, which is a clip of him talking on another, like a British show. But he said what he found inappropriate was that the first dance, Mark Anthony called up the mom and not Nicola, Victoria Beckham, instead of Nicola, the wife. And so that's what he said was inappropriate, not the way that she danced. And then blamed Mark Anthony for doing that, not Victoria herself.
See, the other thing that I find fascinating about this is it requires being in the mindset of someone who cares so much about wedding protocol that I literally can't relate to. Are you not supposed to isn't it a thing that the parent dances with their kid?
Yeah. And then they also showed
order of events is so foreign to me.
Yes. And then they also showed clips of Nicola you should just watch this. They also showed clips of Nicola in the past talking about how the thing she's most nervous about for her wedding is the first dance. So it's just, the whole thing is odd. And I just, I don't know it. And I watched it, yes, because I knew we were going to talk about it. And I love, weird things like this. But when you were talking about how national media was covering things, it kind of took me back a few years ago to Scandival. And I feel like Scandival, meaning Tom Sandoval, Ariana from Vanderpump Rules, that whole thing that happened, totally. Like you said, the New York Times is covering it. These very prominent, quote unquote, legacy media was covering it in a way that TMZ covers it. And I feel like Scandival was one of the first things, I feel like, at least in the US, because I think in Europe, the British cover the royals in this way all the time. But I think it was one of the first times in the US that I felt like it crossed over in sort of a gross way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you can think of another time that happened like this.
I mean, I do feel like it's I mean, I'm sure the Times must have covered various pop culture events in eras that are before my immediate memory, but
Yeah.
it does feel like, downstream of the way social media, while giving everyone a platform, has also sort of like narrowed the scope of what breaks through as a national story.
Yes.
And
yes.
so, like, I guess if 3 million people are talking about something, why wouldn't the Times have an article about it? But I don't know. It's just
it feels weird.
It feels super weird.
Because again, like, they are trying to compete for clicks to get ads and to actually have people visit their website. So you're right. It's like, if everyone's going to TikTok instead, they feel inclined that they have to cover it.
It kind of reminds me also of like during the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually another good one to. Yeah. Yes.
When Candace Owens was like covering that a lot.
Yes.
And so there were a lot of like Gen Z people who were encountering Candace Owens for the first time as like this commentator on the Heard Depp trial, without the context of like, this is a right-wing media operative who has, among other things, like her outside of her Depp commentary, she's covering a lot of topics that perhaps these teenagers are not super interested in.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just a weird thing where like the way these national stories happen, you come across all of these commentators who would not normally be involved in. Yeah, I don't know if there's a direct connection between Candace Owens and the Times there, but it feels of
that had not good. All right, well, let's end this with good. The other thing that you wanted to talk about was a TV show. Tell us what it is.
It's the TV show Moonlighting.
Okay. Which is on Hulu. It's not hard to find anymore.
Yeah, no, exactly. I heard about it years ago, and then I remember trying to find it and thinking like, oh, I'm gonna have to spend way more time trying to find a leak somewhere.
Yes.
And then just sort of like lost interest. And then it went on to Hulu like within the past year, I think. And I watched it over the summer, and it is such an amazing piece of television.
Yeah.
I can't believe it had taken me so long to find it.
So it's Bruce Willis, young Bruce Willis. It's like his first sort of thing. And Sybil Shepherd, who at the time was kind of making her comeback. She was a model, she was an actress, but like hadn't really been anything in a while. And it's just this kind of the classic friction between two people that are like really into each other, and it is like, and it's interesting watching it again through the lens of 2026. There's no way a man on television would be sort of balding on TV the way that Bruce Willis was, but he was so hot in that show.
He's so hot. There's so many things about the show that would never make it. I mean, it's almost kind of a conservative show.
Yes.
Like at one point, Bruce Willis like talks to Ronald Reagan on the phone and is like, "Keep up the good work, Prez."
Yeah.
And there's a sort of like battle of the sexes situation that's happening between Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd that is so dated and at times a little grating. But Bruce Willis, okay, so I didn't realize he was just like a bartender at a hip East Village bar at like before this, and enough TV people came in and were so taken in by his just like insane riz that they were like, you should go up for auditions and stuff, and this is his big breakout role, and he is just bursting with charisma. And what's interesting is that he gets cast in Die Hard like halfway through the series. And so he goes from being basically a nobody to being the biggest action movie star ever. And you can really see it in his performance as he starts to become just so jaded by this TV show and his character becomes like monosyllabic, really this sort of reserved, laconic, grumpy guy, where before he was,
so charismatic.
So charismatic.
And playful.
And playful.
So I'm going to include this in the show notes. I will send it to you. I found I think it's a Town and Country article that outlines their theories as to why the show ended. And they break it down 7 reasons why. And it goes from, him, becoming a massive star. The budget of the show, I guess, was outrageous.
Yeah.
Sybil Shepherd was pregnant with twins. There was a lot of infighting between her and the writers. So, I think that if he hadn't become the huge success that he was, or maybe she hadn't gotten pregnant, like, who knows, this could have gone on for decades, not decades, a decade. But I just, I think it is a great show that was just sort of lost.
It's so the premise is that Sybil Shepherd's a model who is very wealthy, and then this is not a spoiler, it happens in the pilot within 10 minutes, but she gets ripped off by her accountant. He disappears with all of her money, and one of the only things she has left is this detective agency that is constantly posting a loss, and she mostly just used as an entry on her taxes to get a write-off, that's run by Bruce Willis. And so now that this is her only financial gig, she comes in and they start to solve mysteries together. But like the showrunner at the time, each episode had like a movie budget, which is part of why it got so over budget. But like each episode is kind of produced like a movie. It reminded me of Columbo in that regard, where like you're really getting each one is its own thing. And then, but yeah, apparently while it was running, was dogged by these tabloid stories about how Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis just despised each other and hated each other so much that unless the shots were of them together, they were basically shot completely independently with each of them like looking at an empty space. And I found that so hard to grasp, because if you watch the show, they just have this electric chemistry.
Yeah.
So it's both hard to imagine that they hated each other and that they were acting at an empty wall.
But also maybe that hatred like fueled, because it's like, when you watch a film and there's 2 people that are together in real life and it's just like the chemistry is not there in some ways. I think that hatred could have fueled it, except for, do you watch Tell Me Lies?
No, but I was just hearing about that this morning.
It is the darkest, most disturbing, like the main character, Steven, is so awful, but him and the main lead in real life are together, but they're able to manage to still be like, have a chemistry. But yeah, well, Moonlighting, it's on Hulu. Again, we know there's a lot of problematic things about it, but just watch it for the side characters, Bruce Willis's just hotness.
For the theme song,
the theme song,
Al Jarreau, I love it.
Everything about
it's the most 80s song I've ever heard.
Thank you so much for being here, writing Barbieland. If people want to find you, or what are you working on now? Do you want anyone to find what you're doing now?
Great question. I have a couple of things in the pipeline. Well, subscribe to the Drift magazine.
Okay,
where
great.
I'm an editor. And we just put out an issue of another one coming out in March.
Do you have a newsletter?
I don't. Should I have one?
No, great. Good for you.
I love newsletters. I love reading them. I just don't, yeah.
I just, want us to be alerted to your next, thing that you're doing. But no, or do a newsletter, just don't do it on Substack.
Right. Yeah. There's so many other ones now. Beehive, Ghost.
Yes, Beehive, Ghost. You can just host it on Squarespace. You can have a blog.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. So fun.
That's today's show. If you like this episode or any of the Inside and Outside episodes, please leave a review. You might not think it helps, but it really does. It helps you get into the little algorithm better, and also lets advertisers know that you enjoy this show. All right, on Apple, here's how you do it. Go to the homepage, scroll all the way down to the end of the episodes, and you'll see something that says rating and reviews. Hit that 5 stars, write something. Just say love it if you want to. On Spotify, go to the homepage of the show, you'll see a little tiny gear icon. It'll have a drop down that says rate this show, leave 5 stars. There you can't even write anything. And that's it. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening to the show, and I'll talk to you next week.